Hello and welcome to our Friday Facebook Live. My name is Julie Hirschberg. I am the owner and founder of Reactive Therapy and Wellness here in the Los Angeles area and coming to you every week with what we're learning and what we're doing. And our current obsession is with the autonomic nervous system. It has so much overlap and relevance to what we do as neurologic physical therapists and occupational therapists and psychologists that we just can't stop talking about it, to be honest, and can't stop learning about it. I have been reading like crazy because I literally am one of those people that reads a lot, but also I got new books. This one is just called The Autonomic Nervous System. It's been amazing. I highly recommend it, by the way. Basic and clinical aspects. It's from 2018, so not too old. Cardinale is the author. And it's really been a great resource to look at the anatomy. You know, there's a lot out there right now in the autonomic nervous system. There's the polyvagal theory, there's vagal yoga, there's increase your vagal tone through these activities. There's a lot of great things, and honestly, I use a lot of them. But I really wanted to know what was underneath them. What is the science? What's the anatomy? And, you know, it's not all it's cracked up to be honest. And I really wanted to know more. I always go in as a little bit of a skeptic. So today I'm going to share with you what I've been learning and some of the stuff that's frankly from like the textbooks that I had in physical therapy school. So we're going to talk just a review of the autonomic nervous system anatomy, both the central and peripheral nervous systems. We're going to go a little deeper with the vagus nerve. Now, I did a whole session on this on Wednesday, so you'll have to watch that. I think I can put a link in here so you can see that. I went deep into the vagus nerve and even drawing things out, which is a little unusual for me because I'm not very good at drawing. And to talk about why the autonomic nervous system is so important for people with neurologic disorders and therefore the people that work with them, like me, like my team. So let's start with the fun part, the neuroanatomy, and something that I really loved, and I even want to show you in this textbook here, if I can open it. I really love thinking about big picture neuroanatomy. And of course, it's not cooperating as much as I want it to. Here we go. So this particular, by the way, Cardinale is the book called Autonomic Nervous System. This particular picture I really love, and he calls it the autonomic nervous system enlarged. So thinking beyond just the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, thinking beyond the vagus nerve, because it's a whole system. We have a lot of interaction there. And he uses this really lovely analogy, and I really just had to share it here. So he compares this hierarchy. If you think about construction and building, right? So there's the architects that design it, you have the foremen or the project managers that oversee it, and then you have the builders, you have masons that put together things, for example, the contractors even. So he breaks down the autonomic nervous system into these pieces. So the main architects of the autonomic nervous system that are responsible for more of that layout are those pieces in the limbic system. So that's in our central nervous system, our cortex, and the subcortical area. And there's many different areas. Probably most familiar to you are the amygdala, the hippocampus. Those are our big portions. Our smell, so our olfactory system, even portions of the basal ganglia are part of it. And lots of connections back and forth to many different areas. So this is kind of the architecture of and the people that put the layout, the parts of the nervous system that are responsible for the layout of the autonomic nervous system. Very, very important. The overseers, the project managers, the foremen, are the areas that are linked to the hypothalamus, and they're coordinated by the hypothalamus. So, big picture, right? Limbic system. This is our layout. The overseer is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus coordinates things like defensive behavior, our appetite, our thermoregulation, some of our maternal instincts, all of those things. And these are really well coordinated between our endocrine system, motivation, our body. There's a lot of back and forth for this part of our autonomic nervous system. So, third piece are the builders, the masons, right? The masons of the autonomic nervous system include, I think, what you typically think of, all of those neurons. So, we have motor neurons, and we'll talk about these with the vagus nerve, of the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and then the enteric systems. These neurons are very specific functional units for different types of responses for our viscera, for different sensory reflexes and motor reflexes, and they have very specific target organs or target cells. So if we think about hierarchically, we have the limbic system, we have the hypothalamus, and we have these neurons in our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, which are really, that's the main part of the peripheral nervous system. And this author, who I really love this book, by the way, talks about this enlarged. So highest level, which is level 4 our limbic system, level 3 our hypothalamus, level 2, which includes those brainstem nuclei and centers that are associated with the vagus nerve, and then our spinal cord and peripheral nervous system. Pretty intricate and pretty amazing. And this is why, too, we can't just think about parasympathetic and sympathetic and just the nerve part, because there's so much coordination that goes into it. So let's talk a little bit about that coordination, in particular with the vagus nerve. And again, I'll post a link to the talk that I did on Wednesday about this. But when we talk about that, the masons, the builders of the autonomic nervous system, that's all these fibers that exit from our brainstem. Cranial nerve 10 is the largest of these, and it exits at the medulla. Cranial nerve 10 actually is so large, it makes up about 75% of our peripheral nervous system. Is that pretty amazing? I'm sorry, of our parasympathetic nervous system. I think that's just really interesting and astounding. It will go to most of our thoracic and abdominal viscera. It goes to our colon. This is one of those big pieces of the gut-brain axis that we have heard so much about. And honestly, I want to keep learning more and more about. So the vagus nerve comes from 4 major centers in the brainstem. So nuclei. So the dorsal nucleus, which is a motor nucleus, it puts output through the parasympathetic system. The nucleus ambiguus, also motor fibers. The nucleus, the solitary nucleus or nucleus solitarius, which receives information, so taste and other sensory information. And then also the spinal trigeminal nucleus, which you wouldn't have thought is associated with cranial nerve 10, but it actually receives touch and pain and temperature from around the ear and the larynx. So really an important part of it. So the vagus nerve is really complex, and you can imagine that all of these pieces will need to be integrated and that there's reflexes associated with them. So that is a little piece of the vagus nerve, but again, you'll have to grab the video from Wednesday as well. So the third piece, so we talked about anatomy, both central and peripheral. We talked a little bit about the vagus nerve. And the third is I want to talk about why this is so important in neurologic disorders and so important for us. Honestly, this is just a topic we don't learn enough about in PT school. There's a lot more information out now about it, a lot more research. And yeah, I mean, I don't even teach a lot about this when I teach it at USC. So this is why this is so important. So in neurologic disorders, it may be something that is the disorder. So somebody might have an autonomic neuropathy. Somebody might have postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome. So the autonomic is the neurologic disorder. And so we'll have to save those for another day because also very interesting and also a lot that we can do as therapists. But the influence of the autonomic system on the neurologic disorder is so profound in post-concussion symptoms, so profound in a functional neurologic disorder or functional movement disorder, so profound in our other movement disorders like Parkinson's disease, multiple systems atrophy has a lot of autonomic dysfunction as well. And we see an interplay. So for example, in Parkinson's disease, we may see somebody's posture change due to autonomic dysfunction. We may see the tremor change. We may see freezing. And therefore, we want to both assess and treat the autonomic component that might be contributing to that functional problem. In a functional movement disorder, often the autonomic nervous system will be a trigger. So heat and cold, a stressful situation. And so we again want to assess and include that in treatment. Same goes for post-concussion symptoms. So the autonomic system is definitely something that we need to assess and incorporate into treatment, which, by the way, is exactly what we're going to talk about in our webinar coming up next month on May 1st. We are doing an autonomic nervous system webinar. It's a free webinar. I'll put the link in here. You can sign up for free. It's on a Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And we are going to talk about the anatomy and physiology that's really salient for PTs and OTs. We're going to talk about assessment and we're going to talk about treatment and we're going to practice. We're going to practice with our OT in some of the treatments for the autonomic nervous system. This is going to be an awesome webinar and I hope you will join us. So I put the link in there. Sign up for the webinar May 1st. Please share this too. I appreciate so much that you take the time to learn with me and share your thoughts and ideas. It's meant a lot to me, and I would love if you would share this with others. We want to get the word out about the autonomic nervous system and how powerful this can be in a therapy setting. So please share. We would appreciate it so much. And I will see you next week for another session as we dive into the autonomic nervous system. Thanks so much and have a great weekend.